Nate Diaz has done a lot for the promotion. You could agree he was a little early, but still, he brought attention to the UFC in its early days. And now, since he's only got one fight left on his contract, he's looking to go out in style. He's been sizing up Dustin Poirier for quite some time now and has already agreed to a bout. But some fighters don't think that will be the last time Diaz steps into the octagon. First, the perfect retirement. Technically speaking, Nate Diaz should already be retired by now. His contract with the UFC was actually extended back in December 2021. Since then, we've been seeing Diaz and Poirier exchange blows on Twitter, verbally agreeing to beat each other up in the octagon. It's the perfect fight for Diaz when you think about it. Poirier is number 2 in the lightweight division and the 8th ranked pound-for-pound fighter in the promotion. So the fight is destined to attract a lot of eyes. It's good business for the UFC, and it's a nice retirement check for Diaz as well. And while Diaz thinks he's setting himself up for a peaceful retirement, a lot of fighters think the UFC won't let Diaz off the hook so easily, won't be allowed to leave. Despite sounding like a fairy tale ending for the Stockton gangster, a lot of fighters think he won't be able and allowed to leave the UFC. Former UFC heavyweight champion Brendan Schaub believes that a third fight between the notorious Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz is bound to happen. In fact, in an interview with UFC veteran Michael Chandler, Schaub said Diaz will not be allowed to leave until he takes that fight. Surprisingly, Chandler also agreed with Schaub despite having expressed interest in a fight with the Irishman on multiple occasions. Chandler is set to take on Tony Ferguson in his next bout and believes a win would land him a McGregor fight as well. Now, we're not trying to hurt Chandler's sentiments, but he's been really talkative about McGregor lately. It's almost coming off as desperate at this point, but still, it makes complete sense. It is the money fight after all. But at the same time, Chandler does have a realistic approach to the fight. If there's anyone that can skip the line for a title fight, it's McGregor. So a fight between him and Diaz could end up happening. Diaz, however, isn't too interested in Conor McGregor. He thinks the Irishman is still too fragile to secure a third fight given the current circumstances. And honestly speaking, he isn't wrong. McGregor is in exceptional shape. He's hitting the gym. He's working the mats and pads. But still, he's coming off a gruesome injury. And no matter how hard you work on that leg, it is never going to be the same. It's always going to be in the back of his head. Even though Diaz and Poirier have both verbally agreed to a fight, the Stockton gangster has had a tough time securing an opponent. He was offered Khamzat Chimaev, but we think he was pretty wise to let that fight go. Keeping all this in mind, Diaz said that he'd be willing to fight McGregor for a third time provided the Irishman proves his worth. Out of all people, Dana White has also expressed interest in a third fight between Diaz and McGregor. Now, this is really surprising to us because Dana White takes UFC contracts pretty seriously. He wouldn't let Ngannou go out of his way and take a fight that could potentially transform his life. Why would he violate the contract and hold Diaz for another retirement fight after his supposed retirement fight? It's simple. It's good business. The fight will bring in a lot of money. These guys have bad blood. It's almost like the Joker versus Batman. There's mutual respect at times, but both fighters wouldn't mind knocking the living daylights out of each other. Still, it seems like Dana White will have to consider a lot of things before putting this fight into motion. If he gives Conor the fight, it'll seem like he's favoring him, which, to be fair, he always has. But at the same time, he'll face a lot of backlash since he's pretty stern about contracts. Now, he's going out of his way only to make some good money. Conor McGregor's coach, John Kavanagh, thinks that this would be the perfect way for both fighters to end their careers. And being his trainer, we might just take his word for it because he's been with McGregor for the first 2 fights against Diaz as well. Kavanagh actually believes that the 2 fighters are made for each other. It's starting to sound less like a fight and more like a love-hate relationship. He called both the fighters warriors and said it would be the perfect test to end their careers. McGregor has, maybe 1 or 2 good fights left in him? Same with Diaz. Kavanagh might actually be onto something. Depends on what the fighters think though. Either way, it will be a legacy fight. Conor will want Dustin Poirier because he's down by 1. At the same time, if he gets a Diaz fight, he'll have to win, or else he'll be ending his legacy being 1 down to both Dustin and Diaz. Diaz might have a better chance with McGregor, to be honest. While he's in great shape, psychological health is also important in the fighting game. He'll be worried about that leg. He's never going to have the same faith he once had. Poirier, on the other hand, is a man on a mission. He'll be looking to get a straight win after losing his last fight. Guess it really is the final test for both fighters. Now in other UFC news. When a fighter walks his talk, it's truly something different. Even a few days after the fight, you'll see short videos of them on TikTok, on YouTube, with a badass soundtrack at the back. Remember when Conor predicted how he would knock out Jose Aldo? Conor claimed it actually came to him as a revelation. Either way, it was a sight to witness. We're not saying Conor always walks his talk, sometimes he tends to be a bit too conversational. But take Adesanya and Kamaru, for example. Before the fight, both fighters laid down how they'll dominate their opponents, and that's exactly what they do. But when a fighter talks too much and does nothing in the octagon, it gets really embarrassing. We're talking about none other than Jorge Masvidal. Now, we're not saying he's a bad fighter, but he's been getting a little too cocky recently. Before his fight against Kobe at UFC 272, he called both Conor and Diaz leftovers, claiming he'd bash their faces in. Unfortunately, it's been more than a year since Masvidal has won a fight, and before Kobe, Kamaru destroyed Masvidal with a devastating punch that dropped him cold. Clearly, Masvidal isn't walking his talk. But hey, let's be honest, Masvidal said that he's very much interested in the pay-per-view that the fight will bring. Whether it's McGregor or Diaz, all Masvidal cares about is the cash. He's at the later stages of his career, and having signed a lucrative contract with the UFC, he's probably looking to make some serious money so he can retire in peace. Now, there is a different angle to Masvidal's loss at UFC 272. The first time around, Covington poked Masvidal right in the eye. Match referee Herb Dean did stop the fight for a brief moment to issue a warning, but Covington has become quite the villain these days. As soon as the fight resumed, Covington punched Masvidal right in the crotch. On both occasions, Ref Dean gave Covington a warning but did nothing to punish him for his violations. After the fight, Masvidal shared a picture of his eye, and it did not look too good. His eyelid was clearly purple and swollen. During the post-fight conference, Masvidal said that while he doesn't want to take anything away from Covington, that eye poke really hindered his performance. Masvidal is still pissed at Covington and wants to square up with him again. He let that be loud and clear when he called him a cheater accompanied by an F-bomb. In other words, I'm better. Khamzat Chimaev is the hottest prospect these days in the world of MMA. He has a perfect record of 4-0 still and is being called the next double champ of the UFC. However, with great success comes a lot of haters. Some people are not really sold on his level of skill so far. Most fighters and analysts claim he's yet to face his competition. That isn't entirely true if you think about it. He's called out middleweight UFC champion Israel Adesanya. So basically what he's trying to say is that he doesn't really care about the champion in his own division. He's ready to move up a weight class and take that belt. But Khamzat responded to his haters and critics with a lot of logic. He claimed that he's only been punched once in his first 4 fights. Look at John Jones. He got punched so many times during his first 4 fights. I am clearly better. We're waiting for his next match to see what he's got as he takes on Burns. That's it from our side, folks. What do you think? Will Diaz and McGregor meet for one last time inside the octagon, or will Dustin be his last opponent? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exciting videos. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.